Hello guys, my name is Adam Shadow, and this thing in front of me is the 7th version of the Ultimate Storage System. This thing is basically very similar to the previous design, however now it can interface with the unloaded bulk storage, which I showed in my latest video. This means that unlike any of the previous designs, this has access to a potentially unlimited amount of items. Therefore, you don't need to ever worry it will actually run out, or rather run out when you still have the items somewhere. This is achieved through vertical encoders and decoders for binary signals, which basically makes this the first binary USS version. It has the same or practically the same interface from the inside, where you have 8 boxes displayed at the same time, each representing a different item type. And when you press a button, or in this case trapdoors and note blocks, you get another box of the same item type. Since the unloaded bulk storage doesn't really work in the 1.12 version, there is no need to limit myself to make it 1.12 compatible, so this will only work in the newer versions. This is currently on 1.17. Therefore, I can use node blocks and cobble walls. This also enables me to make this thing far more universal. Because of the calling of items, I can technically have any shulker boxes of any items stored in this thing. There is no limit to it. You could even theoretically make like mixed shulker boxes of like different redstone components and store it in this thing. All you really need to do is put them into the bulk storage and call them, and assign another binary value to them when you call them. The same goes for also unstackables, which was previously not possible with the USS. You had to simply make another part of your storage where you would store the unstackables. This thing can easily store unstackables. This thing can even store individual items and send them to the machine. The difference there would be you would actually need to make the system that controls the unloaded bulk storage rather complicated, but it is possible. You could theoretically never break the shulker boxes, or have a version where you simply have a dropper here or something like that will send items. And then refill the individual items from the storage. The way it works is actually immensely simple. Like, it's probably the simplest way you could imagine such a storage to operate. It works just like the previous one, but when this double chest is empty, this double chest basically serves as an intermediate storage, and it also allows me to send items in large batches, so I don't need to refill it one item, then one item, and then one item after each signal sent, because that will strain the server immensely if you just clock this thing. So I only need to send single signal for 54 boxes, which is a huge amount, by the way. Like, that's something most people never even use up on their entire server of single item type. So that's why we have a double chest, not just a set of droppers. Especially in the newer, in this 1.17 version, you can actually use droppers like crazy, since the tile entity lag has been immensely reduced. What happens is this T flip-flop will be activated. It's basically the same thing for all of the other ones, just more complicated. This one is the simplest one. So, extend, send a signal into this encoder. This is a special Nether compatible encoder. Basic operation principle is simply the delay at the top is the lowest, the delay at the bottom is the highest. That causes it to trigger all of these instant lines at the same time. This observer line here is just for backup. In case of some errors, you could theoretically run it and see if one of the modules didn't get stuck empty and never got refilled. You will also need a memory queue where you will store these signals and simply just pop the end of them, or the one that has been sent there for and is there for the longest amount of time after each refill. This also requires to communicate with the unloaded bulk system in both ways. Therefore, we are using a really large decoder for the entire slice. These are actually for all of the 8 items. It's the nice little split of them. And this is simply to reduce complexity, since opening 1 or 8 hoppers at the same time is negligible. You wouldn't even be able to measure the lag caused by the 7 additional hoppers being unlocked, especially since they will be empty. And it makes it a lot easier to build. Probably even saves lag on rail activations, which is kind of cute, and makes it the system that adds bits at the end a lot simpler, because this encoder only sends 8 bits. That's not enough. That's only 256 options. However, there are 8 of them, so you can detect from each of them if the signal came and add 3 bits to each of the signals, depending on from which encoder line or set it came from. There is also the possibility to add another 2 bits if you, for example, use 4 holes. This is just for 1 hole, but with 4 holes you can go up to 15 bits, which is a ridiculous amount of different item types. Don't think we'll ever have that in Minecraft, or at least in the nearest 10 years. Or you could also use it by reducing some of these, like cut down 2 of these bits and add them depending on which hallway this came from. The advantage of this, you can also build multiple of these on your server and have them completely independently operate from each other, which is a huge advantage if you want to, for example, have both nether and overworld side storage at the same time. I would probably recommend to build this in the nether, because sending signal through portals is really, really annoying. Because you basically have to send, as Hub explained it in the last video, bolts or minecarts, which is just a pain to deal with. Also, for the refilling dropper lines, it's using basically one game tick dropper lines, which means that the item stays above the hopper only for one game tick. It's a huge advantage, because that will make the entire refilling a lot faster. Like, it wouldn't be too impactful if you have 4 hallways, but for example just 1, it would make a huge impact. Or even worse, if you would somehow decide to use even bigger encoders and just have all of these dropper lines be basically one line connected to all of these 8 places, which is in fact possible. If you want to make it a lot simpler, you can actually do that. The problem is you will activate way more unnecessary droppers when it's refilling, and you will only need bigger encoders. As you might have noticed, this part here at the bottom is definitely the biggest one, and this one is actually the smallest one I'm really proud of this. Also, Binary helped me with some of these. This only has not even an observer, it only uses a redstone block and a single dispenser. It doesn't even have droppers, which is really nice for such a compact design. This thing has sadly 8 of them. And this huge pile of torches is sadly necessary in order to make sure this piston stays always in the retracted position after you press the button, even if you spam it. Like, no matter how fast you spam any of these buttons, the thing will not break or anything like that, which is a huge advantage over some storages where you have to be really careful. They also deliver it at hopper speed, just like the previous design. Theoretically, maybe even faster if you would somehow make it pile up in these droppers. You could even make it slightly faster. Then you can break the boxes fast enough. There are basically no unlocked hoppers in this whole thing. Even when it's working, unless it's refilling itself. The only time when they unlock is when the player pulls out an item, and this piston, for example, here will extend and unlock the hopper for a really brief moment. Same also in these other parts. This thing already is very close to what is even theoretically possible in Minecraft, since fitting more than 8 boxes displayed in one place, accessible without doing sideways movement with the player, like without running to one direction or the other, or jumping or doing some silly stuff like that, is already immensely difficult, and putting like 10 in there is insane. Like, I don't even know if we could do that, even with a single button. That would already be really annoying, because it would cause a lot of resorting. But still doable, theoretically. Let's say. You could also use this with something like the USS 5 and use the encoders and decoders for USS 5. I'll maybe one day make a version for it, where I try to make like the highest density storage possible. However, then you have to always wait for your new box rather than being able to always just open them. Also, if you want to place some of these things where you need to take out often boxes, you can actually place them in this row and this row, especially this one here at the bottom. You can just do a little movement and you can grab them, or here. The issue is then they will not refill, so you will either have to press the button afterwards or just do it somehow that they refill over time. Theoretically also possible, like the entire contraption will be triggered like twice. Like here it's not an issue due to the hopper as much, here it would be slightly harder. These wirings here at the outside are basically as efficient as I could get them, reducing the amount of rails used, because these vertical cable walls are insanely low lag. Like, this entire thing is insanely low lag. There's no even point in discussing it, since it's under 1 MSPT anyway, just like the previous designs. And I also made 2 versions of the encoders, and they are designed in such a way that the time to trigger them is for all of them the same. So, like I said, you would have to have 2 players trigger 2 different slices, or rather item type storages at the same time. I don't think you can even do this with a single player, unless you use some sort of insanely fast macro. Even that is tricky. Therefore, all you really need to watch out, since you can't break it by spamming, is to when you hear the thing do something, like you will easily hear that trigger, like these pistons here. Make sure to check if this didn't happen with someone triggering another part at the same time. Even if that happens, it's not a huge deal. You just need to send the signal through these server lines, and it will basically figure out if there is another slice empty. Since when it's empty, the observer here is like this. Also, the collecting of the items is done through hoppers. Again, it's made to be nether compatible. It's also pretty conveniently placed, since I can use it to power some of these droppers. You can get away using water also in the overworld if you really want that. I think that's probably everything. Maybe I should take a flyby a little bit of some of these things even further, so you can see the arrows on all of these servers where they are pointing. I really don't want anyone to try and build this unless you really understand how this machine works. And there are very, very few people in the world who understand storage tech on such a level. So that's why I will not give you a world download or anything like that, as I did in the past. I will probably eventually make some videos where I show simpler storages once this thing, if it even ever gets finished. There is no guarantee this is the last version, or if I don't figure out something even better. But as of right now, this is by far completely unmatched. Of course, the only thing that you could kind of say competes with it is my theoretical interface, just the buttons calling items. However, this thing doesn't require any item lists or resource packs or anything like that. Also, don't even try to do this on a modded server, or however you call it, servers with Spigot or anything like that. It will not work. There's almost 100% chance this will not work on a Spigot server, especially not with the unloaded storage. You could use this with different bulk storages. Technically, there is nothing stopping you. Like, you could make your own normal bulk storage and attach this to it. However, at that point, you kind of just go back to using the USS 6 or 5, to be honest, because you are probably not going to make your bulk storage that lag efficient. At least not so insanely lag efficient that it's really worth it. And the infinite capacity of the nether bulk is just way too good to not use it. That's the main reason why I even made this version of the USS. It's first the upgrade to the newer versions, and secondly, the ability to use the infinite storage. Also, for some people who didn't get it, the reason why I call it infinite because it's literally infinite. Even if there's a limit how many chests you can put in one chunk, you can just put multiple chunks of multiple chests and just figure out if the previous one is empty and then refill it from the other one. So basically, you can make it as big as the entire world in the game, which I wouldn't recommend trying. And that works. This thing is also acceptable for the client since it doesn't use too many chests, but that's also a thing you might want to look into if it's not a problem for client-side mods like shaders and things like that to load a huge number of these parts. Also, this cable walls will be one block bigger, but you can find all of the description how this works in my encoder and decoder video. So yeah, thank you guys all for watching. Please like, subscribe, or if you didn't like it, dislike it, and tell me in the comments what I should improve. Of course, if you have any suggestions for future videos or ideas how to make this better, tell me down below. Have a good day.